Hi everybody, this is SWTOR Kamatazi, and I am currently on my stage, and I will be going over the telekinetics spec of the class. I would normally be going over things to note from the discipline path, however, in this case the spec is extremely easy to learn and keep a rotation going that I'm not going to worry about it in this video. I highly recommend that you read everything in the discipline path, as it will provide things that could help you come up with your own rotation and even your own playstyle. I will also be going over the utility points, which I still recommend that you read over everything available there, so that you can find a spec that matches your playstyle. I will be going over really two different rotations, but it's really the same rotation, just to ability difference. So at the end of the video, I will also be going over my usual player tips for everybody that I have in all my videos, and I will provide another video that will explain more than with more player tips than what I have normally been discussing. So under my utility points here, under Skillful, I have Jedi Resistance, which increases the damage reduction by 3%. I also have Tectonic Mastery, which increases the damage dealt by Force Quake by 25%. Under Masterful, I have Telekinetic Defense, which your Force Armor will deal 4486 energy damage back to the attackers whenever it absorbs direct damage to you. The effect cannot occur more than once each second, and the effect of the attacker getting damage from the absorption will not affect your allies. It's just a special effect for you personally, the player. I also have Staggering Stratagem, which reduces the cooldown of Force Stun by 10 seconds. And in addition to that, targets stunned by your Force Stun will deal 25% less damage for 10 seconds when Force Stun wears off. Another good one to have here if you don't like one or the other will be Mind Ward, which reduces the damage taken by all periodic effects by 15%. Under Heroic, I have Mental Defense, which reduces all damage taken while stunned by 30%. And in addition to that, will be damage taken from area effects will be reduced by 30% as well. I also have Containment, which your Force Lift will break early from damage, but the target is stunned for 2 seconds after that. And then in addition, your Force Lift will activate instantly. This essentially makes your Force Lift become a second stun. And then what goes hand in hand with that will be Force Wake, which causes your Force Wave to immobilize your targets for 5 seconds, and the direct damage dealt after that 2 seconds will end the effect prematurely. Your Force Wave knocks back your opponent, and then immobilize them for the 5 seconds, and then which will allow you to use 1 or 2 abilities, depending if it has a cast time or not, will cause your opponent to be able to move, and then you'll be able to follow through with that with your Force Lift, which will activate instantly with the Containment, and cause your opponent to be stunned for a few seconds, which again, 1 or 2 abilities, then they'll be able to move freely. Under Legendary, I have Force Mobility, which Turbulence, Healing Trance, and Force Serenity can be activated while moving. Another good one for Legendary will be Life Ward, where your Force Armor, Force Barrier, and Enduring Bastion heal you for 1% of your total health every second for as long as they last. This healing will scale up to 4% with the charges for Enduring Bastion. If you do not like, just another one for heroic, if you don't like one of these or both, you could actually also get kinetic collapse, where your force armors you place on yourself will erupt in a flash of light when they end, blinding up to 8 nearby enemies for 3 seconds. And the effect breaks from direct damage. Now, as I mentioned, the rotation on this class is actually rather simple, and you could actually learn and master it pretty quickly. So the first combination that you could do will actually both start off with Telekinetic Gust, followed by Mind Crush, which will be procced after Telekinetic Gust, which is just a 0.5 second reduced cast time. It's not a lot, but it's still effective. So, starting off with Telekinetic Gust, followed by Mind Crush, followed by Weakened Mind, followed by Turbulence, which will automatically crit the target that is affected by Weakened Mind. So that's why it's a good combo here. And then after Turbulence, your Telekinetic Wave will be procced, which will be an instant cast. And then I like to follow through with Force Quake because it will deal more damage after the Telekinetic Wave. And then after Force Quake, you can either go one of 2 ways. You can click on Force Speed, which will proc your Telekinetic Burst to have 2 instant cast. You'll be able to use it twice for instant casts, and then if you time it right, after the first, maybe the second one, your Telekinetic Wave will proc again for another instant cast, and then follow through with Force Quake again for again an increase in damage. And then you'll be starting over again with Telekinetic Gust and going through that. Another version, instead of using Force Speed after the first Force Quake, and after your first Force Quake, you can actually use Telekinetic Throw, followed by Project, and then start over from Telekinetic Gust. And then go through that way as well. So it sounds complicated and hard to remember. However, it's once you have it down, it's actually really simple. So I'll show you guys a visual. So starting off with Telekinetic Gust, followed by the procced Mind Crush for a 0.5 second reduced, followed by Weakened Mind, then Turbulence, proccing Telekinetic Wave, which then will have an increase Force Quake damage. I'll use Force Speed to proc Telekinetic Burst for the 2 uses, followed by a procced Telekinetic Wave, and then Force Quake again. And then I will be going through the rotation again with Telekinetic Gust, the procced Mind Crush, followed by Weakened Mind, then Turbulence, and then instead for Telekinetic Wave, proc, and then Force Quake for increased damage. And then instead, I'll go the other route for Telekinetic Throw, Project, and then back again at Telekinetic Gust, followed by Mind Crush, Weakened Mind, and Turbulence, procs Telekinetic Wave, and then increased damage for the Force Quake. And it's just a constant circle over and over again. So really the only difference you have is either the Force Speed route followed by the Telekinetic Burst procs, or you could just use Telekinetic Throw once followed by Project, and then do the rotation all over again. Like I said, sounds complicated to remember, but if you set it up accordingly, it's actually really easy to remember and really easy to set up. I do recommend that you replay everything up to this point for that rotation and have it written down, so that way as you unlock everything you can set it up accordingly for the rotation. So for player tips, I'll be pressing Y to bring up my legacy here, and then under global unlocks and other, I just like to start off the same way here by saying that I recommend one of your characters in the legacy to cap out in the left side alignment. That way you can unlock the Unity ability. The Unity ability requires your companion to be out with you in order to use it. However, when you click on the ability to use, both you and your companion will both have a 50% damage reduction for 15 seconds. So you take half the damage in that 15 seconds, which is extremely helpful if you get into a tight situation. Under convenience, I recommend that you max out Legacy Fleet Pass, as that will cause your Fleet Pass ability to have 0 cooldown. I also recommend that you get Legacy Travel maxed out, as that will cause your quick travel to be having a 0 cooldown. And then if you decide to get the Priority Transport Personal Starship, I recommend you maxing this one out as well, to where that ability will have 0 cooldown. Now, with all three of them maxed out, that essentially allows you to port around all day, and anybody grouped up with you could potentially struggle in keeping up with you, making you look awesome. I also recommend that you get tactical markers in case you end up being a leader for the operations or for the flashpoint, in which you'll be able to mark out where you want each of the roles for a much smoother boss fight run. Or at least, hopefully. That way it's not a chaotic mess. I also recommend that you get improved mounting, as that allows you to mount while you move. I personally find it addicting and fun. I don't like to take the 2 extra seconds to pause, to mount, and then start moving again. I like to be able to just keep moving. Mostly because I like to pull a lot of ads. For ship unlocks, you do not have to have any of this, as it is available to you on the fleet. However, if you are like me, where you like to use them to training dummies in peace and in private, as seen on my screen here, I am on my personal starship doing this. If you do like to train in private, I do recommend getting the operations training dummy as well as the Warzone training dummy for your ship, so that you could train in peace. And character perks, yes, I do not really have much unlocked on this character. This character was actually a boosted character and made quickly. Under advancement, I do recommend that you unlock what you're going to focus on. For the PvPers who like to level up in PvP purposes for battlegrounds, or in this case war zones in this game, get the first line here for improved Warzone experience. For the PvEers who like to level up in dungeons or flashpoints in this game, I recommend getting the flashpoint. For the people who like to quest, I recommend getting both the class mission experience as well as exploration, these two go hand in hand very well. Under travel, I do recommend getting the personal starship. This way, if you're leveling up through your class story, then a good scenario for this will be, let's say you finished a heroic mission on planet side, and you are in the middle of nowhere. And your class story is telling you to go to your personal starship in order to progress in the storyline. Well, because you're in the middle of nowhere, instead of having to go to the nearest flight path and then take the speeder over to the starport, it's easier just to click on the personal starship icon and port straight to your personal starship. I also recommend doing the same thing for the side planets, such as the Black Hole or CZ-198, as they'll take you straight to the planets. That way you can do the heroic missions there, or go to the flashpoints in person, like I do personally. And this also is highly recommended for those who cannot find them on the maps or galactic map, or if you just keep forgetting where they're at. Under convenience, I do recommend eventually getting all of these, as they are all useful in their own way. However, for the beginners who are just starting out, I recommend that you first get the field repair droid here, as it will allow you to both repair as well as sell anywhere that you're at, including in the middle of the operation after a difficult boss. I also recommend that you get the field respec, as it will allow you to, of course, respec anywhere at just about any given time. This is minus the fact if you're in the middle of a fight, which is just ridiculous and trying, let's be honest, or if you're in the middle of a war zone. It will prevent you from being able to respec. However, it is, let's say, if you're in the middle of a flashpoint, and because we're on a stage, and your healer drops group, those will allow you to go from a DPS role to a healer and feel in the healing role, and allow you to keep progressing through the flashpoint. If you are on, let's say, a Jedi Knight for a Guardian, and you have both the tank gear, and you're in the middle of, and you're playing a DPS role at the time with the DPS gear equipped, and then the tank gear is in your inventory. Yet your tank decides to drop group. Well, that Guardian, you'll be able to equip your tank gear, switch your spec, and be able to take on the role as a tank, allowing your group to keep moving forward, and everybody's happy. Or you could just use it to switch DPS specs if you are not enjoying your current DPS spec. Under Companion, I recommend that you get Legacy of Altruism. That way, you get an increase for influence with your companion from the companion gifts. Normally, I would say a total of 30%, as there's 3 of them. However, what dawned on me is it's for the first one will be increased by 10% of the default. The second 10% will be an increase of 10% of the first increased amount. And then the third one is 10% from the second increased amount. To go in hand with the altruism, I recommend you get Legacy of Promptness, as, again, it reduces the time taken to give gifts to your companions by 20% each one, which, again, I would normally say 60%, but with the dawn or the realization, the first one will be 20% reduction from the default. Second one's the 20% reduction off of the first reduction. And then the third one will be 20% off of the second reduction. But the benefit of that, though, is it's going from the default 3 seconds to give a gift to your companion down to roughly 1.6 seconds. And that is a huge time saver when you have a bunch of gifts give to your companions. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Welcome to playing the Telekinetic Sage, and I wish you guys the best of luck.